What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millzy, back at Hometown Commander, and today we're doing kind of an interesting video. Today, I'm doing a video called The Art of Goldfishing, kind of explaining why you should goldfish your deck, what is goldfishing, why are they guys beneficial for you, and how I approach goldfishing and what I use it for. So I think we need to start by asking ourselves, what is goldfishing? What does that mean? What is it as a concept? Goldfishing is a way for you to dry run the first few turns of a commander game by yourself. You don't need your opponent to do this. You're going to do this at any time you can. There's multiple ways to do this. You can use your physical deck. I just chose not to for this one. Moxfield and some of the other online deck builders have this feature for you, so you can use them. It's not a deck you've built physically, and in fact, I would recommend that to you if you put a deck list together and you're thinking about building it in real life and real cards. I think this can help you put your deck through some paces to kind of figure out if this is a deck you want to build. So the second reason we're doing this is to start getting an idea of how our deck functions. And I think this is kind of a two-prong way to answer that question. The first is we're going to test out and start to understand what does an average opening hand for our deck need to be. How many lands? How many mana rocks? What cards are we looking for? What cards are auto keeps? What cards do we not need to keep? How fast can we functionally get out our commander in an average game? Over the course of multiples of these sessions, these little goldfish sessions, we should be able to understand relatively what we should want in an average opening hand, so that when we sit down at a table and play this deck, we know what to expect. And the second is playing through 4 to 5 turns of setup to start to understand how do we navigate the opening turns of a game to set ourselves up in the position that our deck wants to run. Now, the only issue with this, right, is that we have to put some limitations on how we goldfish. So whether you're doing this with your deck in front of you or here on Moxfield, I am playing with Jetmir, Nexus of Ripples, only because this is a deck that I know very well. So I wanted to pick a deck I know really well so that I can show you some insight into what goldfishing does for you. You either set up on your game mat in front of you at home or wherever you're at, or your deck, and draw your opening 7, or you use a feature like Moxfield, which is going to draw you an open 7. And we're going to use this platform to draw for our first few turns, play our cards as we would during those turns, and kind of play out our board one-sided towards our goal. Now, we have to keep a few things in mind. One, we have no opponents. So if on turn 1 we play a hasty creature, sure, there's probably going to be an opponent for us to attack. But if on turn 4 we play a hasty creature, there may not be someone to attack. And so what we need to try to do as we're goldfishing is try to leave or understand your options on the table, but don't just assume you're always going to have someone to remove their creature to get this benefit, or you're always going to have someone to hit into who's completely wide open. Those are the things we want to stray away from. What we want to do is maybe on turn 3 you have multiple plays and you say, okay, well, in this scenario I could do this, or in this scenario I could do that, and kind of play those out and start to see. What we'll talk about, and what I try to do when I goldfish in this scenario, is maybe on turn 3 I have 2 different cards I can play, and what I will do is make the decision to play one of them in the moment, but in the back of my head I'd say, okay, what if I had played this one? The next turn I'll draw and say, okay, well, if we had played this last turn, we do this. If we had played that last turn, we do this. And you start to see still how this structure builds out over the course of you testing your deck. So for me, there's 3 goals to goldfish. Learn more about your deck, start to understand how those games set up, how you start to get the thing going, and what to look for in opening hand. To recognize patterns or milestones in your game plan. What are you looking for? What is the kind of core of your battlefield, or the core of your permanents, or the core of the cards in your hand or graveyard if you're playing a graveyard deck that you need to look for? And to really get that experience in choosing opening hands, so when you go sit down and play the deck at a card shop or wherever you may be, you can look at a hand very quickly and understand, do I have the pieces here? Okay, so to get kind of all the exposition out of the way, that's what it is. What I want to do is just spend some time goldfishing Jetmir. There's going to be some hands where we draw it and I say, this is a perfect hand, we're going to play this out. There's going to be hands where I say, I need to mulligan. And I think what this is going to do is help you understand when you should keep and when you should mulligan. I think we as Commander players don't mulligan enough. We keep halfway acceptable hands that we end up getting drowned with because they just aren't good enough to keep. Now this hand, for example, I think is almost, it could be better, but I think this is going to give us a great start. What I'm looking for with Jetmir is, and we have to understand Jetmir to understand what we're trying to do. For those who don't know what Jetmir is a Naya commander, a 5/4 cat demon for 4 mana. It says creatures you control get +1/+0 and have vigilance as long as we control 3 or more creatures. An extra +1/+0 and trample if we control 6 or more creatures. And a third +1/+0 and double strike as long as we control 9 or more creatures. Jetmir's goal is to get 9 creatures on the battlefield and start just swinging at our opponents. So our goal for the early game is to get mana in place so that we can start getting creatures on the battlefield. Now my Jetmir deck does this in 2 ways. 1, either with X spells or X abilities that make tokens, or 2, creatures that either make tokens when they attack or tokens when they enter the battlefield or do other things. Those styles of effects. So, what are we looking at? Well, I have a 2-lander here that has a Soul Ring. So this is a 4-mana hand, right? I have 4 mana to access my disposal. Turn 1, with this hand, I should ideally be able to land Soul Ring Skull Clamp. Skull Clamp's a great card, and it's going to help us start pushing our way forward. The question is, what do we have after that? Well, we have Intangible Virtue, a card that gives all of our creature tokens +1/+1 and vigilance. Yes, Jetmir gives us vigilance as well, but this is still important because it gives the +1/+1 boost as well. Bess, a creature that cares about when 1/1s come in, we put counters on her. Whenever she attacks each other creature with base power toughness 1/1 gets a massive boost. Bess can very quickly end games depending on what board state she gets down on. And we have Battle for Bredegard, a saga that on the first 2 makes us a 1/1 token of various types, and on the third one makes us a copy of any number of tokens we have with different names. That third ability can be very good and can very easily get us towards that 9 creature requirement we want with Jetmir. I think this is a great hand. We ideally want to go Bess into Battle for Bredegard and try to build our board state out from there. Bess generally isn't a big target for most people until they realize what it does, but I think it'll help us get there. So I like this, whether I go Wooded Bastion or Spire Garden turn 1, we should be able to Soul Ring into Skull Clamp. But okay, we've got an idea of what our opening hand does. I've kind of talked through what my cards do. They're all good. I like them. They're a good section together. I have a potentiality of turn 2, 1 creature. Turn 3, 3 creatures with the Bredegard. Turn 4, 4 creatures with the Bredegard. Turn 5, 6 creatures with the third ability. And that's if I add no other tokens to the battlefield. So this is good. I'm getting my trajectory up. I like it. Let's play the hand. Turn 1, I draw Mural. Great draw. I mean, this is a card that once we get this out, it's going to start making us more tokens and could very quickly get us to that threshold with Jetmir. So I think I Wooded Bastion. Now, Wooded Bastion I can tap for a colorless, and the filthy lands are some of my favorite lands in the decks if you can play them, because they can turn that Spire Garden into double white if I needed it in the future. But okay, tap for the Soul Ring, get Skull Clamp down. That's my turn 1. Now this is going to hit me some heat at the table because Soul Ring is already a card that a lot of people don't like, or they like to say if you play Soul Ring turn 1 you lose the game, right? The old adage. But it's going to be 4 mana turn 2. Now we really probably didn't need it. I mean, if we'd had a mana rock, if there's only tap for 1 it'd be great. It still gets us best on turn 2, which is still my goal because I want to get it down before Bredegard, since Bredegard can put counters on it. Turn 2, we draw Clever Concealment. Now, Clever Concealment is probably one of my favorite protection spells in this deck because it allows us to convoke to cast it, meaning that even if we tap out, we can play this to protect our creatures. Love a Clever Concealment. I will leave this in my hand and use it if need be. But here we just play Bess. We'll end up putting the green from Spire Garden for a green, a white into Wooded Bastion, tap the Soul Ring for 1, and play Bess. Nothing to do with our spare mana. That's okay. This is a great turn 2, and in fact, we're probably going to be ahead of most people. Now, we do run the risk, and this is where we need to kind of, as we're goldfishing, we need to think. Bess could catch early removal. And I'm okay with that, because as much as Bess is a great card, could also be a lightning rod for removal that Miro doesn't see, or Jetmir doesn't see. Some people don't always get access to 4 or 5 pieces of removal in a game, and if someone's going to shoot that one piece of removal off quick at Bess, I think we're okay with that. So before I even draw this card, what I like to do both in a game of actual Commander and in Goldfishing is, what am I doing next turn if nothing in my hand changes? I've got 2 plays, Bredegard and Miro. I still think I'm better off going Bredegard into Miro. Well, I guess logically it would state you go Miro into Bredegard, because then you have a better chance of Bredegard copying one of the tokens that Miro makes. So I think it would make more sense to go Miro into Bredegard, so that way Miro can make us a token that can get copied with Bredegard. Because if I play Bredegard next turn, and then I play Miro, that turn 3 is going to come up before Miro can make a counter. So I think right now I'm playing Miro unless I draw anything to tell me otherwise. Okay, Rootbound Crag is our land. This is going to come in untapped, unfortunately, because neither of these are a mountain or a forest. So I think I just dump Miro here. Now, during our turn, opponents can't cast spells, activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. So this should hopefully help protect us a little bit. Bess is not attacking. Bess has no reason to attack. It's a 1/1. We don't want to put it in harm's way. Next turn, she's going to get a counter from this Bredegard, hopefully, and a counter from Miro. And now we're in a position where we can play Bredegard and Intangible Virtue potentially on the same turn. Now, I'll say now, before we get into turn 4, I don't generally play Jetmir until I need to. The reason is because he's going to be a lightning rod for removal as soon as someone reads the card. So I would rather force you to have a counter spell or a removal spell on the turn I play it, rather than have it sit around. And I'm going to try to get enough mana so that even if you remove it the first turn it comes down, it's going to try to come down the next turn. So no, I'm not going to dump Jetmir here, even though when Miro attacks, I'm going to have I'm going to get a soldier out of it. It's not worth it. I'd rather keep building up, get my board state to where it needs to be, and then play Jetmir. So turn 4, we draw Path to Exile. Not a bad card, but I still think I go Intangible Virtue into Bredegard. Bredegard makes me that 1/1. Oh, that's right. You can pick it here, can't you? This is the one nice reason to play on a deck like this, is it automatically lets you get those tokens. I get that Human Warrior token. This puts a counter on Bess. I don't know how to do that on this one. In a game in front of me, I would just, in a game in front of me, I would just put a dice on it. I actually have no idea how to do this on here. Oh, add a counter. Okay, there we go. We added a counter there. She gets the +1/+1 counter because a 1/1 came in. And then when she attacks, she's going to start. And here I'm going to take a shot at somebody with Miro. Now, because this is a game where I can't see my opponents, I'm not sure where this Miro is going to go. But here's the thing. Miro's a 3/4. And on turn 3, I highly doubt anybody, or turn 4, which I think we're at turn 3. I highly doubt anyone is going to have a creature that's going to be a flight risk for Miro. But pick the opponent you think Miro's attack is best into here. Attack them. I make 1 soldier, because I only have 1 soldier at the moment. I think it's just this one. I could be wrong. It's whichever one's colorless. No. I'll not skip through this because I want to show you how to use this resource if you choose to use it. There's my colorless soldier. Okay. So I made a okay. So I made a soldier. Bess gets another counter because another 1/1 came in, and Miro just attacks. Maybe the damage gets in, maybe it doesn't. Either way, now we have 2 tokens, right? Bess has 2 counters on her, and now when Bredegard gets to 3, we're going to have 3 tokens with the one it makes next turn, unless we can get another token. All right, we'll go one more turn. Krenko would be perfect if I had any way to give it haste, because it's going to make a bunch of tokens, but next turn when it attacks, we could potentially get in a really good scenario here. Here's the little warning bell I'm going to put in your head. I would dump Krenko in here this turn because Jetmir is probably lethal for at least 1 player next turn. And let me kind of show you why I'm thinking about that. If I dump Krenko this turn, I get to leave Path of Exile up because I just tap one of these 2 and the Soul Ring to get this down. I have 2 I have a white source up. Well, actually, do I have a white source up? I would need a green mana. Well, I do. I leave one of these up so I can get a white source through Wooded Bastion. So I have the path, and I also have enough white for the Clever Concealment and enough creatures to tap. Krenko comes in, of course, doesn't have haste, so there's nothing I can do with it. But this turn, right, remember Battle for Bredegard made us that Elf Warrior. So we're going to get the Elf Warrior. This is going to come in, make another counter on Bess. Now we have 6 creatures. Jetmir would give us +2/+0 right now. But we're going to wait. And now we're going to take another run with Miro. Again, pick a player that we think we have a good run at without getting Miro killed. If we get Miro killed, I actually don't think we care. This would be a turn where I wouldn't love for Miro to die here, but I don't think that Miro dying would hurt us too much just because we would still have enough creatures to replace her. But anyway, take an attack. We now have 2 soldiers. Right, it's not non-token soldiers. It's just soldiers. So we're going to actually get 2 more soldiers here from immediately on her attack, which is going to put 2 more counters, right, on Bess. So now Bess is up to 5. She is a 6/6, but whenever she attacks now, she's putting +5/+5 to all of her creatures. And now you're starting to see why this turn with Jetmir next turn is going to be so lethal. Okay, well, we passed the turn, and I love this scenario, and let me explain to you why I love this scenario. If someone tries to interact with one of our creatures, we get to make the choice. Is it worth Clever Concealmenting for? Now, if someone tries to wipe the board, we Clever Concealment, I phase out all my permanents and all my creatures, and I'm probably for sure, just absolutely brutalizing at least one player. And the worst that we currently have, it's going to be at least 2 because of that +5/+5. But the reason Clever Concealment's so good is they phase out. So the problem with using something like the problem with using something like Eerie Interlude is I'm going to lose all my tokens when they exile. The cool part about phasing is that I don't. Now, also a good part about phasing here is they're going to phase in before this gets a 3rd counter, meaning we'll still get the tokens, right? So if I need to pass something, I'll pass something. Otherwise, I'm just leaving up Clever Concealment. Also, the other really cool part about this is I can still pass something because I have more than enough creatures that are untapped. I have 2 white creatures that are untapped for that Convoke and enough creatures to Convoke this Clever Concealment. So I really could play the path on this bastard on the table if I need to take out somebody's commander, take out somebody's value engine. Now, before the end of my turn there, I could also have used Skull Clamp to draw some cards. In that scenario, I don't think I really want to because I need to keep the white mana up and I need this Spire Garden I didn't tap to get the white mana from Wooded Bastion. So I'm not going to, but I could. All right, so if we go around the table and somebody tries to wipe the board, we Clever Concealment. If we don't, we don't. But let's move to this turn, and I'll show you where we're going to try to end the game here. So we get to our upkeep, and that's good, all fine and dandy. Battle for Bredegard goes off, making us another warrior, another elf, and another soldier. So we get a elf warrior, we get a Hurman warrior, and we get a soldier. Now these tokens are not going to have haste this turn, so we're just going to set them off here to the side. But each of these 3 is now going to buff Bess by 3 more counters, putting Bess up to 8 counters on her. Okay, we drew a Drungle Shrine. We'll chop that bad boy in tapped. Now, this is a really fun scenario where if we didn't have to Clever Concealment, we can now keep Clever Concealment up to protect us. But we tap for 4. This comes in tapped. 1, 2, 3 in the Soul Ring for Jetmir. Now, if we wanted to clamp with that extra mana from the Soul Ring, we could. Let's just say we do it just for the old craps and grins. But okay, Jetmir comes down. We have 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 creatures, meaning Jetmir is completely online. All of our creatures get +3/+0, Vigilance, Trample, and Double Strike. Okay, so we move to combat. We're going to declare attackers. And in this scenario, I have to think. All of my creatures get flat +3/+0, making all of my 1/1s into 4/1s plus the 1/1 from from Intangible Virtue. They're all 5/2s with Double Strike and Trample, meaning that if my opponent's still at 40, provided they don't have any blockers I need to care about, 4 of them would be enough to knock somebody out, depending on what their blockers are. But remember, Bess has 8 counters on her. That's going to give them all +8/+8 until end of turn when she attacks. And she's a 12/9 right now with double strike and trample. I should, in this scenario, be able to take the board out. And the reason is because, let's say I put Bess and Mural at 1 player. I put this block of tokens at 1 player. I put these Krenko and these 4 at another player. This is going to be a pretty brutal attack because of what's probably going to end up, what's of course going to happen next. When we attack, I have 3 triggers. I have the Krenko trigger, I have the Mural trigger, and I have the Best trigger. The way I'm going to stack them is Krenko first. It is a 4/2 at the moment, right? Because of Jetmir. When it attacks, it goes up to a 5/2, making me 5 goblins, right? I'm not going to completely step through this, but okay, 5 have come in. Best gets 5 more counters, up to 13. Miro goes off. I have 5 soldiers. I get 5 soldiers off of Miro. Bess is now up to 18 counters on it. And now we resolve Bess's trigger, giving all of our tokens +18/+18 until end of turn. And now this game's over. Now, if I didn't have Jetmir, I would have just needed some way to give them trample, or my opponents not have enough blockers. But if I don't catch Jetmir here, I think I still take this attack because, sure, Krenko gets 3 less goblins. Miro still gets the same amount of soldiers, so we're still up, right? We're still up, what, 8 tokens, meaning Bess is at least still up to 16, and this attack is lethal if they don't have enough blockers, and pretty tough to deal with because they have vigilance. But in this case, this is now lethal on our opponents unless someone has a fun effect. Now, because they'll have vigilance, if someone tries to settle me, if someone tries to aetherize me, if someone tries to do that, I'm just going to rock the Clever Concealment, phase everything out, and tell them, congratulations, you now have to deal with this next turn. Next turn, I'm going to phase them all back in, and I'm going to make this exact same attack again, and I'm going to run through this again, and I'm going to get all of these tokens again, and we're just going to keep, and at that point, has the board, got enough to deal with it. Okay, all right, well, okay, Zach, that was one hand. I got a pretty good hand. Let's do it again, right? We want to prove here that we can do this consistently, and this isn't just a one thing. All right, well, this is a 2-lander. This hand's a little more rough. I have the Impact Tremors on 2. I just need 1 more land to get either into the 3 Blind Mice or the Legion War Boss. This deck does have a decent amount of lands in it. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to keep this hand just to see if I can rock this on a 2-lander. There are 2 tap lands, so I'm going to kind of give myself 2 lands, 2 turns anyway to get into the Legion War Boss. But hey, I want to show a starter, a slow start. All right, well. Turn 1, we draw Wildflower Awakener. Not a land, that's okay. Field the Dead End tapped. Might raise some eyebrows. Be dumping in a Field of the Dead End tapped, but that's okay. Turn 2, we draw Halo Fountain. Not a land, that kind of stinks, but we'll put the Path of Ancestry in tapped. Now, if I don't draw a land here, this is going to get brutal. We can still play the Impact Tremors and move on, but a land here would be key. We don't see a land. I'd probably just play the Impact Tremors, and I would probably now pretty much regret my decision of keeping this hand. But again, I want to show you in this sense of this Goldfish why it's okay to keep a bad hand, to teach yourself why that was a bad hand. I drew 3 cards and didn't hit a land, which in this deck is statistically unlikely. But again, shuffling is shuffling. What if we don't hit a land this turn? Then it's even more salt in the wound. But again, we'll go 1 more turn, don't hit a land. I'm still stuck on 2 lands. I probably would throw the Enchantable Virtue down because I still have Path of Ancestry for any color. And now I'm in even worse trouble. To be honest, that would have been the point where I needed to draw a land. And I think we can now determine this Goldfish was a wash. I kept a hand I shouldn't have. I need to ship it and mulligan that hand, so let's do that. Let's mulligan. But I like playing it out there because we need to show ourselves that it's still important to see why a hand is bad. Had I got a 3rd land, that hand probably would have been good. War Boss into 3 Blind Mice would have given me a really great board state to start setting up tokens. But here's the thing. It's not guaranteed, no matter how many lands you have in your deck. The Moxfield Shuffler is the Moxfield Shuffler. Our deck is our deck in real life. And so it's still worth the thought experiment. At least I'm not in a game where that would have punished me and kept me behind. But this is why we do this. This is why we have these conversations. This is why we do this on our own time, to understand, a 2-lander without any ramp maybe is a pretty risky keep, right? Here, a 3-lander. My Arid Mesa can go get a Temple Garden. Perfect. The Arid Mesa can go get my Jetmir's Garden for any of my colors. Rootbound Crag is going to come in untapped because I have that, and same thing with the Forest. I love it. Great hand, 3 lands. We can get the hive set up. March of the Multitudes is one of my favorite X spells in the deck because the more creatures we have, the more tokens we can get out of March of the Multitudes. We just need some other way to get more mana, and I think we're off to the races. Otherwise, we just Scrawl's Hive, and we can also just wait a couple turns. We could secure the Wastes on turn 3 for 2 mana if we really want to. Again, there's enough here that we can get this game going. March of the Multitudes will save us here. And again, any of the lands we draw, anything else is just going to be golden for us. So turn 1, I'm still going to crack this Arid Mesa. I'm still going to go into my library. I'm still going to get that Jetmir's Garden because we want to have access to all of our mana or all of our colors. We don't have access to white right now, right? So the argument is I can either go get a Temple Garden, but I think I want to go get that Jetmir's Garden. I missed it. Where is it? There it is. Put it in tapped. I'm not doing anything turn 1 anyway. Cool. Turn 2, we draw another land. Perfect. Now we have plenty of lands. We're good to go. We're not worried about it. Get that Rootbound Dragon tap. Get the Scrawl's Hive going. Now we're going to start making a token every turn. They have Toxic, which could potentially become a problem for our opponents. But the other thing I like about Toxic with Jetmir is if the Toxic actually matters, right? If it actually matters, and they are only 4/1s, with Double Strike, and I don't have enough to let's say our opponent's gaining life, the Toxic with Double Strike is another way to potentially knock a player out, if we wanted to do that. All right, well, turn 3, we lose another life, and we're going to get a Might token. Again, it doesn't have haste or anything fancy, so it's just going to sit there. Turn 3, I'll get that Forest down because we have no reason not to. We guess we could put anything down, but we have 2 choices here. I can slam King Darien down, which is a great choice, buffing up our other tokens, or I can wait and play the Secure the Waste. I think it's clearly Darien here, buffing up our other tokens and can protect our tokens with his bottom ability. I like this board state. The Might can't attack, and I'm okay with that. I think we just call this a good turn 3. Again, remember, we're not looking to slam Jetmir turn 4, so next turn I'm probably looking to see what we draw. If we draw something better, we will play that. Otherwise, maybe I'll just try to secure the Waste on someone's end step to get some more tokens and maybe look into playing the Rabble Rousing the next turn. But okay, turn 4, we draw a Mirri's, a Mirari's Wake, which is going to be a great turn 5 play, buffing up all of our creatures and getting more mana. And it's very easy in this deck to run away with a game after we get a Mirari's Wake down. But all right, 4 mana, we get another Might and lose a life because of the Hive. Remember, the Might that we put down this turn can attack with the one last turn can. So my thought process here is if I have a good attack with that Might, let's slam it in somewhere. Might as well. It can't block. Get a 2 mana into somebody and a poison counter on them if we can. If not, I'm okay to leave it up, and I'm going to pass the turn. Now, before it gets back to me, this is what we're looking to do. I can either secure the Waste for 3, or I can March of the Multitudes for 4, because I can convoke these for mana, and that's 7 creatures total. That's 7 mana total. Marching for 4. Marching for 4 would be 7 creatures. On my upkeep, I would get an 8th with the Hive, and we could potentially have a Jetmir turn here. So the question becomes, what does the board state look like, right? If my opponents are still pretty slow and there's an opponent I'm worried about, I march here, get the tokens, get Jetmir. I'm going to gain a ton of life off those 1/1 lifelinkers, and I could potentially knock someone out that I'm really worried about. And then the exact problem is, what if I get board wiped, right? But I'm not worried about that. We're one of those decks that's trying to slam in. So what I'm doing here is I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to march for 4, and I'm making soldiers with lifelink. I'm just going to do it. Oh, that doesn't. Let's, for the purposes of this, we'll just do 2, 3, and 4. Now, to my friends that see me play this deck a lot, this is a telltale sign that I am cooking, that I know what I'm doing, and I think I have a good play here. Because it's either this or Secure the Waste, right? But my opponents don't know that. My opponents just think I'm solidifying my board. And that's okay. Now, remember, those are all 2/2s because of King Darien, which means with Jetmir now they're going to be 5/2s. So that's 10 life that I'm gaining off each of them, but we'll get to that in a second. Again, I'm going to do that on the last opponent's end step before my turn, because what I don't want to do is do that too soon and run the risk of my board getting wiped. Now, if my board gets wiped, it gets wiped, and I just Secure the Waste for 3. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that into a board wipe. That's only if my board doesn't get wiped. If it does get wiped, I just Secure Waste for 3 before my turn, because on my turn I can Rebel Rousing and start filling my board up. All right, Forsaken Orchard down. Whenever we tap it for mana, somebody gets a 1/1 spirit. We don't really care. We get another Phyrexian Might, and this matters because remember we need 9 for Jetmir. So this might matter. 3, 6, 7, 8, and now when we cast Jetmir, we're up to 9, and we're taking a big strike here with 6 creatures. What I would probably do is these 4 at somebody, these 3 at somebody. Remember that King Darien doesn't get its own buff. So it's just a 5/3 with Double Strike and Trample. I know, boo-hoo. But these both are now 5/2s, and these 3 are 5, These 3 are 5/2s, these 3 are... I think I'd probably do 4 and 3. So these would be 4 5/3s with Double Strike, Trample, and Lifelink. If they don't have a blocker, they're dead. 10, 20, 30, 40. This is death. This is 30. Again, it's still going to be hurting somebody, and I'm netting 40 life no matter what. Now, unless they have some first strike shenanigans. Again, Jetmir can attack, this Might can attack. But again, 40 life gained here. This is going to either cripple somebody or knock them out. And now we're in business. Now, again, same thing. If somebody wipes us here, it sucks. But I can next turn put a Mirari's Wake down and try to rebuild the turn after, and that would be my game plan. But here's the thing. If no one interacts with our board, we just run this back again. We get another Might off the Skrell's Hive, we play something else, and we run the same attack back again. But let's just for purposes of this one, let's play the scenario they wipe the board here. The last opponent that I didn't just cripple, the one that's left with 50, 20, 25, 30. The person who was left with 10 life that I couldn't exactly swing in and nail out, and they would have only gotten 4 poison counters. Let's say one of the two of them finds a way to either remove Jetmir, which would be an option, right? Or wipe the board. Let's say they remove Jetmir, right? Because that's a more possible scenario where they realize, well, my board isn't actually very good without Jetmir. I mean, it's still good, but it's not as good without Jetmir. Maybe they think, oh, okay, without Jetmir, we can handle the board. We drew for turn, it's Adeline. I have 5 mana up. I have a bunch of 2/2s, and I have a good state here. We lost another life, got another token with Skrell's Hive, but unfortunately I'm a mana off, right? I don't have 6 to recast Jetmir. I think I just dump the Wake, giving my creatures another +1/+1, and if their board states aren't good enough to block here, we're swinging again. If the board states are good enough to block here, I think I still swing, try to get through what I can. I have one opponent who's probably very low, and that's who I'm just full swinging at. Take a shot. I actually just realized if someone board wipes, I just use Darien to protect the tokens, and that would leave me with just the tokens left. I think we still make the same play. Run him at somebody who, run it who that person was left at 10. They're probably now dead this turn. Whether they get the +1/+1 from Darien or the +1/+1 from the Wake, that person's probably dead, and I'm gaining another 8 life, right? And now it's just me and one more person. I have a board full of tokens and double the mana. If they wipe the board, I have multiple X spells to get me more tokens. If they don't wipe the board, Jetmir's coming back down, and we end the game. All right, so you could see sequencing, you're starting to understand why. I hope you're starting to understand, if you've never goldfished before, why this is important. You're playing through your turns. You're starting to understand, why am I playing what at what time? You could see there, right? The two options are they wipe the board, they get rid of Jetmir. I'm trying to play around the scenarios that someone might have had. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, Millzy, what would have happened that last combat if somebody removed Jetmir in the middle of combat? I still make the attack, and in fact, there are still 2/2s in that combat, unless my opponent can trade favorably, right? The attack's still worth it, in my opinion. It's still worth taking the attack. Yes, they lose the Vigilance and the Trample in the first strike, but I'm gaining, what, 8 life instead of 40? I think the attack's still worth it. And again, in that same scenario, if they'd remove Jetmir and take favorable blocks, I still have multiple X spells in my hand to make tokens. We're still going to rebuild. This deck is built so well to rebuild if someone wipes me, to the point that you can remove Jetmir all you want to, but I'm either going to swarm you out or I'm going to use Jetmir to run over the top, and that's what we'll do at this point. If they keep wiping me, I'm just going to keep trying to swarm them out and go wide using Mirari's Wake or Darien to buff them up. I have other buffing effects. Rabble Rousing could be played this next turn if they get rid of, if they try to wipe me and I got rid of Darien to protect the board. This is just going to get me more tokens, and now I'm just going to keep trying to flood you out with tokens, and you now have to deal with them. So this is kind of where this deck gets good. Is I'm either going to try to aggro you out with this mid-range tokens plan, or I'm just going to try to go wider than you. And the reason why I kind of love and hate this deck is the games where you do the Naya tokens thing and you face roll the keyboard and you dump all the tokens out and you win the game. I don't get to see my mid-range game plan those games. But then the game plans where I get to see the mid-range, token you out, go wide, then Jetmir is always the threat. But again, I don't mind Jetmir being left off the table because eventually I'm just going to go wide. I have War Leader's Call, I have Mirari's Wake, I have Intangible Virtue, I have all of these cards that are just going to make my tokens bigger and bigger eventually, right? I'm just gonna value you out, whether you wipe the board, whether you aetherize me or whatever. I think at this point it would be very hard for a table, especially with one of them already dead and the second one hanging on for dear life if they're not still alive, if they're not already not taken out by that last attack. Once this game is 1v1, I think there would be very few decks with the board state this has set up at the current moment, even without that board, that I'm not comfortable I'm going to win this game handedly. So let's do one more. Again, the intention here isn't necessarily to show why the deck can win. Again, it's to do this horrible no-lander. We're obviously not going to keep that one. 1, 2, 3 lander with an Arcane Signet. Crypto Threat is great, allowing my tokens to tap for mana. Virtue is great. March is great. Again, I have no way to make a token. That's the only thing that scares me other than the March. But I think this is worth it because I have enough mana to do it. And all I need to do is get March down eventually for mana tokens, and the tokens are tapping for mana. Turn 1, Stopping Ground. Okay, I'll just dump that in tapped. I got nothing better to do on turn 1 anyway. Arcane Signet's my turn 2 play. Cool. Turn 2, we get a Plains. I'll play that Promenade, get that Signet down, pass it up. We're still at 3 lands. We've got plenty of playables next turn. I think it's a conservative start, right? Not as aggro as the last game, but that's okay. We're not always going to have these super aggro starts where we jump in. At a casual commander table or a mid-powered commander table, turn 2 Soul Ring, turn 2 Arcane Signet is perfectly fine. Turn 3 Steel Shaper's Gift, and this is, I think, where probably our luck's going to turn around a teeny bit. I'm going to Cryptolith here to get that down, and I'm going to Steel Shaper's Gift. There's two equipment I know in my deck that I'm going to look to get here, or I could look to get here. The first is Horn of Valhalla. This is an equipment that on the adventure side just makes X, 1/1 tokens where X is X, and this is another way for us to net a bunch of tokens. Or the other one we can go get, and I would say if we had more creatures on board, we could go get the Scepter of Celebration, which makes tokens every time we deal damage to a player with the creature that this is attached to. If I thought I had a better creature on board, I might go get the Scepter, but I think here I go get the Horn of Valhalla, because this will then allow me to go Valhalla into March of the Multitudes, maybe to get a bunch of value. And we passed the turn here, right? We're good. Turn 3, we got some playables down. Turn 4, we can get the Exotic Orchard or the Rugged Prairie Inn and get 3 into the Valhalla, or we can kick the can down the road by Windswept Heathing for a land. I think I would just go ahead and get the White Orchid down and play the Horn of Valhalla, getting 3 soldiers, because I think that's the most efficient use of this turn. Because remember, because of that Cryptolith, right, these guys are all tapping for mana next turn. So I think it's worth it because they can either tap for mana or tap for the multitudes. Either way, we're good. And pass the turn. I doubt anyone's board wiping at this point. Someone might try to remove the right. It would stink, but again, they can still convoke for March, so I'm okay. Turn 5, we will play the Rugged Prairie, and, well, let's think about this. I could Heath here. This could be a turn to do that. Go get the Garden. I still have 5 mana up, plus the 3 would be 5 into March of the Multitudes. If I do this, this is 6. 5 gets me to 8 and is enough for Jetmir to be potentially lethal on at least one person the next turn. 6 would do the same. So I think I would just Heath here, take the life, go get the Jetmir's Garden, get it in tapped, just get us that opportunity for that, and I'll pass the turn. Again, I'm going to wait, and on the opponent's turn before my turn, I'm just going to march the Multitudes where X is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, tap these 3. I'm now getting 5 of those soldiers. On my opponent's end step before my turn, I would not do it before that. I would not want anyone to know that I have this or that the knowledge is there that I have this. I want to wait as long as possible. I'm not going to block with those 1/1 soldiers. I'm not going to do anything with them. I'm just going to leave them there. And now we're untapping with 8 creatures on enough mana to play Jetmir. Untap. Put the Rugged Prairie down. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. I'd probably still get the Virtue down in here and then just slam Jetmir. And now we have 5 2s instead of 4 1s. Again, pick 4, put them at somebody, put the other 4 at somebody. We now run the risk of knocking out 2 players here. If Jetmir gets removed, sure, it kind of stinks, but I still have 8 2/2s because of the Virtue. And so you still have to deal with 8 2/2s. I'm going to gain a bunch of life. It's either 10 life or 50 life that I'm gaining here. Either way, I'm okay with it. Again, if a bunch of my creatures get knocked out here by a board wipe, I'm in a little bit worse of a spot. But again, I've now knocked 2 players out, and I'm just playing against 1 player, right, at the end of the day. But hey, I take this attack. Let's say somebody removes Jetmir, but I don't lose any of the creatures. I still have favorable attacks, or maybe I get a couple picked off. Okay, kind of stinks, but they had vigilance. Let's say I, get, lose 1 or 2 tokens, in the grand scheme of things. A couple of them get blocked. I get some damage in, but hey, I live another day. I still have enough mana for Jetmir. But, we're a creature or 2 down now, right? I mean, we don't have as many as we did before. That's how it goes, 5, 6, 7. Jetmir would still be 8. We could play this out of the... So Jetmir is 6 right now. I'd play the Valhalla, and maybe we try to get Jetmir back down and take another swing. They're now +2/+0, and just Vigilance and Trample. I think it's still worth it. They're 4 2s instead of 5 2s. No double strike, but could still be good attacks. Maybe we look to attach that Valhalla next turn. And again, if Jetmir gets removed, now we have the War Boss here to... that we just drew to help us rebuild. If we get board wipe, we still have the War Boss, and we'll eventually, same scenario we're in last game. If we get board wiped, we'll try to go out wide our opponent. If we don't get board wiped, we're just going to end the game. So I hope that does a good job at kind of showing you how I would goldfish, what I think the approach for goldfishing is, and why I think it's important. Every deck's going to be different, and I think you could spend an hour or 2 doing this with your deck, refreshing every new game, trying to approach it, trying to understand how your deck's trying to set up. And this, I'll be 100% honest, is how I've gotten good with my main decks. The main decks aren't the most, some of my main decks are not the most powerful decks in the world, but because I know the deck and I know what to expect, I can keep the right hands, play the best optimally, and put myself in the best positions because I'm used to the deck and I'm used to playing them. I think the mistake people make is they don't do this, they don't understand their deck, and they take risks that they don't know if their deck can support, and then they end themselves in positions where maybe they made the wrong move. The way this deck was built, again, like we've said multiple times, is that even if you get rid of Jetmir, or you take out all my tokens, I'm just going to try to rebuild, and eventually I'll have enough mana to put Jetmir back down. But again, you can see I'm not putting Jetmir down until I need him. So he's not going to get removed 3 times before I take this big alpha strike. You either need to have the removal the turn he comes down, or I'm going to nuke the table or part of the table. And I'm going to pick the player I least expect to be able to remove. That's what I didn't talk about kind of as we were making these attacking decisions. Is I'm going to pick the player to knock out, the one I think has the best chance of stopping me. The second player in each of those attacks, I'm just going to pick, again, the second person, and I'm going to leave the person I think has the least likeliness to stop me, so that when I get to that final turn, maybe you don't have the removal, or maybe your removal isn't as bad. And that's when we push through towards ending the game. But let me know, what do you think of goldfishing? I'd love to hear what you guys do as far as goldfishing goes down in the comments. I'm going to try my best to put some chapters here so you guys can kind of go through. I'll do the introduction, and I'll do each of the little goldfish scenarios we set up, just so you guys can skip in between them and do that. But let me know what you feel about goldfishing down in the comments below. Did I do a good job at explaining it? Do you hate what I did at explaining it? Let me know. If you want to see more goldfishing, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to goldfish any of my main decks and talk about this. This is the part of the game, other than brewing, that makes me very happy, is setting board states up, playing the game well, understanding the game, and making the best decisions. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.